It all began with a bang. He could remember that much at least. A long, echoing explosion like a thunderclap that seemed to roll around earth and sky. He remembered how he had caught his breath and how his pulse had raced at the ominous sound. But after that, what else remained in his memory? Nothing. At least nothing that made any sense. The doctor sat quite still and tried to collect his thoughts. What had happened? How had he come to be here? And, most important of all, where was he? He knew that he must have been asleep, or perhaps unconscious. He had woken up with a splitting headache. He had opened his eyes to find himself in total darkness, and, peer as he might, he could not see a glimmer of light in any direction. He was sitting on a hard, stony floor, with his back against something that seemed to be a tree trunk. Stretching out a hand, he could touch the knobbly roots of a tree to one side, and a patch of something that felt like moss. But there was something wrong with it. He shook his head, trying to throw off the cobwebs that seemed to be shrouding his brain. He must think. Try to concentrate, try to pin down the elusive clue that was just out of reach. What was it that felt wrong with the situation in which he found himself? If he were lost in some impenetrably dark forest in the middle of the night, he would just have to wait patiently for daybreak. And then he snapped his fingers. At last he knew what was wrong. The moss, the tree roots, the rough bark behind him all felt solid and real enough, but they didn't smell like a forest. There was no scent of damp moss, of leaf mold, of living things wafted on the night air. This forest smelt of nothing at all. He shivered a little and shut his eyes. There was nothing for it but to sit and wait for whatever might happen next. And while he waited, he would try to piece his thoughts together like fragments of a jigsaw puzzle. He would do his best to remember what had happened. Certainly it all began with a big bang. Fleetingly, he remembered that this was one accredited explanation for the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang theory. He gave a tiny grunt of amusement. At least he hadn't lost his memory altogether. That was some consolation. But this particular explosion had been of a very special kind. It had been the start of a spectacular volcanic eruption.